Have you ever wondered what truly backs the most powerful currency in the world? Many believe it is the U.S. government or the massive gold reserves at Fort Knox. But the truth is, since 1971, the U.S. dollar has not been backed by a single ounce of gold. It was nothing more than a worthless piece of paper until an invisible force transformed it into the lifeblood of the global economy. To understand who stands behind this currency, we must look back at a secret deal in the 1970s that changed human history. At the time, America was plunged into crisis, and the dollar was on the brink of collapse. Washington dispatched a top-secret envoy to Saudi Arabia to strike a historic bargain. The U.S. would provide absolute military protection to the Saudi royal family. In exchange, Saudi Arabia had to price and sell their oil exclusively in U.S. dollars. This agreement gave birth to the petrodollar, a system that forced every nation on Earth, if they wanted to buy energy to run factories and light up cities, to hold U.S. dollars. It was this colossal global demand that turned the greenback into an invincible weapon. But the true power controlling the flow of this weapon does not reside in the White House, the institution that prints the money and decides the fate of the American economy. The Federal Reserve, or the Fed, is actually an independent organization. Despite having the word federal in its name, the Fed operates like a private entity run by the world's most formidable financial minds, entirely outside the direct control of the U.S. president or Congress. They wield ultimate power, raising or lowering interest rates, manipulating inflation, and injecting trillions of dollars into the market with a single click. When the Fed sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. The terrifying part is that this system is engineered to create a perpetual debt trap. Every single dollar printed is born out of debt and carries interest. This means the more the world grows and the more dollars it requires, the heavier the mountain of debt humanity must bear. Ultimately, standing behind the U.S. dollar is not a mystical power or a shadowy family hidden in the dark, as conspiracy theories suggest. Instead, it is a flawlessly designed global financial system, a masterclass combination of monopoly military might, oil resources, and the Fed's infinite power to print money. Did you know that what truly backs the U.S. dollar is not the American government, let alone some massive gold reserve? The hard truth is, since 1971, the U.S. dollar has been nothing but a worthless piece of paper until an invisible force transformed it into the very blood of the global economy. Back in the 1970s, facing the brink of collapse, America pulled off a masterclass gambit, a secret alliance with Saudi Arabia. The U.S. offered absolute military protection. In exchange, Saudi Arabia agreed to sell its oil exclusively in U.S. dollars. Thus, the petrodollar pact was born, forcing the entire world to surrender their real wealth just to get their hands on the greenback if they wanted to buy energy. But who is the one actually pressing the button to print this money? Enter the FED, the Federal Reserve. Don't let the word federal fool you. The FED operates independently as a private syndicate of financial tycoons, completely outside the control of the U.S. president. The FED prints as much as they want and manipulates interest rates as they please, and every single dollar they roll out automatically births new debt. The ultimate force standing behind the U.S. dollar is nothing less than the perfect unholy trinity: guns, oil, and the infinite power to print money. The United States does not own the dollar. Yes, you heard that right. The U.S. government has absolutely no power to print money, and the dollar bill in your pocket actually belongs to a private entity. Many believe the U.S. president is the most powerful person on Earth. In reality, there is a man who only needs to clear his throat for the entire global financial market to tremble: the chairman of the FED, the Federal Reserve. Don't be fooled by the word federal in its name. The FED is completely independent and is not managed by the U.S. government. So, how does this money-printing machine actually work? When America needs money, it cannot print its own. Instead, the government issues something called bonds, which are, simply put, I owe us. The Fed takes those I owe us, punches a few keys on a computer to create billions of dollars out of thin air, and lends them back to the U.S. government. This means that for every single dollar brought into existence, America shoulders an additional debt. But this genius trap doesn't stop at the U.S. border. It drags all of humanity into the game. To force the entire world to spend this paper debt, Washington pulled off a secret handshake with Saudi Arabia in the 1970s. The U.S. provided military protection. In exchange, Saudi Arabia was forced to sell its oil exclusively in U.S. dollars. The petrodollar system was born, transforming the greenback into the ultimate lifeblood of the global economy. Today, any nation wishing to buy energy to light up its cities or run its factories must break its back producing real goods and services, only to hand them over to America in exchange for pieces of paper printed by the FED out of nothing. At its core, the U.S. dollar is not money. It is an instrument of debt. It is an ultimate alliance flawlessly engineered between monopoly, military might, oil resources, and the infinite money printing power of financial tycoons. But have you ever wondered what happens if a nation dares to stand up against this rule of the game? The answer is brutally devastating. Just look at history, at Saddam Hussein in Iraq or Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. The moment Saddam declared he would sell oil in euros and Gaddafi planned to create a unified gold currency for Africa to break free from the greenback's chokehold, their fates were sealed. America's terrifying military might was instantly triggered, wars erupted, and both leaders met tragic ends. The unspoken message from the powers behind the dollar was crystal clear. Touch the oil and the dollar, and you will be crushed. However, this great money-printing machine is currently breeding a self-destruct virus within its own core. Ever since the pandemic, the Fed cranked its printing presses to maximum capacity, conjuring trillions of dollars out of thin air in just a few short years to bail out the U.S. economy. This move inadvertently pushed global inflation to a boiling point, forcing other nations to realize a bitter truth. They were using the sweat and tears of their own people to shoulder the consequences of American extravagance. And so, an underground wave of resistance began to surge stronger than ever. The BRICS bloc, spearheaded by superpowers like China, Russia, and India, is aggressively executing a de-dollarization campaign. They have begun trading oil, agricultural products, and resources in their own local currencies, or turning to alternatives like gold and digital assets. Even the petrodollar, the sturdiest pillar of this currency for over half a century, is showing fatal fractures, as even Saudi Arabia begins to accept the Chinese yuan. A new financial order is taking shape, and the U.S. dollar empire has never looked this shaky. The war for control over the global money flow is no longer a thing of the future. It is happening right now, fiercely and silently. Will the financial tycoons behind the FED pull off a new wild card to save the game, or are we about to witness the collapse of one of the greatest ultimate weapons in human history?